Welcome to this week's episode of InvestHer podcast, where you will get to hear from Roni Eiger, who is an angel investor based in Israel and who works very closely with the Spanish ecosystem as well. Now, she's super interesting because she's going to tell you everything about why you should become an angel and her own background on that story. And most importantly, today's episode is all featured and focused on Israel. So she's going to give you the insights into the Israeli culture. And then we're going to dig deeper into the Israeli funding ecosystem. What makes it so unique? What can other systems learn from it? And why you should care. So sit back, relax, enjoy this really insightful episode with Roni. InvestHer podcast is for you, the female founder who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in and need to get funded. Or for you, the investor, who wants to learn more about the huge untapped investment opportunity that gives you a higher return, women entrepreneurs. My name is Anne Ravanona. I'm an entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and women's advocate, and I'm passionate about helping women entrepreneurs get funded. In each episode, we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into real-world funding tactics and strategies to help you get the funding you need faster. Let's put the fun into funding. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's get started. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, Roni. I'm delighted to have you with us. Thank you for being our first guest of the new year of 2023 on our podcast.
Thank you, Anne. I'm very excited to be here. Very excited.
Well, I'm really excited because you're such an interesting woman. You're such an interesting person, and you have like all these positive split personality sides. Let's just say, in the sense that you have vast areas of expertise, but also experiences and cultural difference and where you're working and all that. So we're going to dive straight into there. But before we start, I want to give all our listeners a heads up that this podcast is going to be very interesting, this conversation we're going to have with Roni, because you're going to learn a lot about the Israeli startup funding ecosystem, and she knows a lot about it. We'll dive into agri-food, agri-tech as well, which is also a big area of her expertise. And you're going to learn about what's going on in the Spanish funding ecosystem as well. We're going to get some key tips. So that's why I said this is a really cool one. It's not a one-sided conversation, which is really nice. So let's get started, Roni. How about if you could tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, who are you and what do you do? Let's start there. Give us a bit of context.
Okay, so I'm Roni. I'm Israeli. I currently came back to live in Israel after having lived 4 years in Madrid, last 4 years. I have 4 children, 4 kids. And I came back to Israel partly because my eldest daughter, who is now 19, she came to Spain when she was 14 and she stayed very Israeli. So she said after her 12th grade and IB, program that she did there, she said, no, Mom, I'm going to Israel. I'm going to the army. I'm going to do it, the Israeli way, which basically means you don't have to think about your college or anything like that when you're 18 or even 16, like you do it in Europe. You just go to the army and then you go to work and then you travel. And then when you're like 22, 3, 4, whatever, you start thinking, what do I want to do? So it's a very different kind of path, I think. So she basically brought us back. So I don't know what would have happened. We probably would have gone back at some point, but that kind of made us all go back. So as I said, I'm Israeli, but I've lived in Madrid for the last 4 years, and I have a BA in computer science and in economics and an MA in economics. Very kind of theoretical. I've always loved math. That's like that was my hobby as a child, and an MBA also in finance and strategy.
Woo-hoo.
So basically, all of my kind of like my career, except for my more academic years, have always been in the high-tech industry in Israel. So I grew up in the high-tech industry, from coding to kind of doing everything, product management, product marketing, a lot of business development. That's what I love. Um, I was an entrepreneur. I sold a company. I sold our family business, which was also in IT.
Mm-hmm.
So all around that. But also the last 15 years or so, I've been managing a single family office. So basically my parents or my family's um, funds.
Yeah.
And what I do there is always kind of like more like allocating and understanding, the different risks factors and risk reward in general, and kind of like stabilizing what you want for when you want it and who is it for. So kind of that kind of more kind of long-term thought. Whereas in my own kind of world and my own money, I'm much more of a gambler. So I
Or
want to invest in venture and I want to take more risks and I'm an entrepreneur in the like in spirit. So whatever I do, mostly it wouldn't have been like more, kind of like a corporate job or something very secure and very, it has its pluses and it has its its downsides for sure.
not for everyone. I mean, oh my gosh, just listening to you, the entrepreneurship oozes out of you, Roni. It just comes out of you. I can hear it so loud and clear. And I mean, what a fascinating background. And like, you're a dream come true for investors. If you like, when you were running your own company and the family business. But now, and let me just say, because before we dive in a bit more into what you do now, I just want to say that I love your eldest daughter. I think she's badass. I love that she knows so early what she wants to do, and that she's got, clear-minded what she wants to do, and it's loving and embracing her culture. I love that because I've got bicultural children. My children are Irish and French, and so I just want to tell you she's a badass and she's got a great mom.
Yeah.
So obviously you're doing something right. You guys are doing something really right. So I just wanted to get that in there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very proud of them. And
No,
her specifically, she is very
yeah.
smart beyond her years, really. She is like very smart.
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I'll say the same for your other children as well. Of course, I'm happy for them as well. I don't leave them out. We leave nobody behind. They're all,
No, of course not.
of course. So now, Roni, so you've taken us through your kind of journey, your personal journey. So you've been managing your family office for 15 years, as you say, more long term. Of course, that's very different type of investing than the short term venture side of investing, what you do as a business angel. So tell us a little bit more about how you actually got into it. Like, when did you start becoming a business angel and how did you start finding your feet? Why am I asking you that? It's because we need more women business angels. It is extremely important. So I think it's great for you to share your experience, your story, just of how you got into it, and then we're going to dive more deeply into the different funding scenes. So yeah, tell us what's your story.
So actually, it is quite interesting because when on the one hand, I've always grown up in high tech and around startups, had my own or was in startups, so it was always there, right? And everyone around me and everything. And on the other hand, I was managing money, and at some very early point, I understood that I basically cannot do any kind of venture investments through the family office for two main reasons. One is that most of those years we had our own family business from which the money came, let's say, and some of the years I was also working there, and the last few years it was a lot of gambling over there, so a lot of very kind of high risk investments over there. So I kind of felt that as the oldest daughter in the family, the one managing the funds, I need to be extra careful and conventional and in doing so it was very clear to me that. And on the other side also, I was always pitched with different startups. And since I'm an entrepreneur myself and I love this field, I felt like, okay, I cannot, first of all, I cannot due diligence each and every kind of like opportunity like that. And I, if I don't just make a decision that I'm not doing this, I'm just gonna basically lose all my money, because I want to be in everything. And so I just made a very clear decision that I'm not investing in venture capital. So most of the years, that was it, is investing in whatever, in hedge funds, private equity, and in allocating funds through different managers. I was doing real estate, direct, indirect, whatever. You learn the trade, you learn that you work with people, and it's you learn from doing everything. But I didn't do any venture.
Mm.
And then well, I
Sorry, Roni. I meant to ask you this question. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's important because for some people who are listening to the podcast and may not really understand the difference between venture and kind of that longer term investing that you're talking about. What's your definition of, well, the definition of venture?
So it's not only about venture in long term. It's not that venture could be very long term. It's more about the risk reward, right? So it's more about taking less risks and also less reward in that aspect, but more conservative, right? If you do real estate investments, it's not like putting your money in a seed startup.
Yes.
And I felt that my responsibility, and it's very funny because I've always been very, very responsible on the like family side of things, never like losing any money, that very kind of very long-term thoughts also about the family and my sister and brother, and how we build everything, that everything is safe also in terms of relationships. I was very kind of straight. But on my kind of other side, my personal side, my own money, my own family's money, I like to play a lot more. So I also lost a lot more, and I also made, it's like a very different kind of like split personality in that term. But mostly what I think about your question in the family office. Also, now we've started investing. Now my brother is also with me. Most of the years I did this alone, but in venture, but we do it through funds. We don't make specific investments in seed or whatever startups. It's a very different kind of thing, and you allocate whatever percent of your funds to venture or to whatever. So you kind of, it's more about allocation of risks. So also real estate is more let's say risky than whatever else, bonds, whatever. When your money is not with you, when you actually give it away, you transfer it to someone else to do a project, whatever, it's by definition more risky than anything that is that by a push of a button you can sell, and it's there for you. So yes. It's different kinds of let's say of thought process.
And so you decided therefore to be, I love, because I mean, given your background, and I mean, I think it's an interesting decision that you made to become a business angel, to invest your own money. Let's put aside the family office experience and there, you're so lucky. I think any entrepreneur to have you as an investor are very lucky, because you bring so much understanding to the table and experience and expertise. But why, I'm really curious, why did you choose to be a business angel and invest your own money versus go to a venture fund? Like you could, if you said, okay, I want
because
venture.
Because that's exactly it. I love startups. I love technology. I love doing business development for new technologies, and I always wanted to be close to that, and I was always part of that. So at some point, after many years of kind of being in the industry in different ways, well, it was a funny story. I did one kind of investment in the COVID years from the family office, and through that I met well, actually, it was one investment that brought me to two of the clubs that I'm actually investing in right now. So I did this connection between a Spanish group of people that I knew at the time. So one of them was my friend, and they just asked me about, if I know this and this company, and I said no, but I can check it for you. So I just made the introduction. I never like made any money off of it or anything like that. I just made the introduction between this food tech startup in Israel and these Spanish guys. I didn't even know they were going to invest at the time, but I just did the introduction.
Yeah.
And a few months later, this guy, my friend, who I trust, is a very bright guy. He told me, listen, we have due diligence this company. We're going to invest in this company. We really love it. So, I mean, thank you. I can offer you to also invest because I think it's a really cool company. So I said, okay, yeah, just sometimes you have to you have a rule, but sometimes you get out of the rule, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to put some money, the family's money, right, in this startup. It had nothing to do with me. It was just like a good recommendation I got in those years. I had let's say I gave myself the pass to do this one investment. Mm. And I called the Israeli guy, the startup, and I told him, listen, I want to put money, but it doesn't make sense for me to put it through this Spanish vehicle, right? I'm an Israeli company.
Might as well get tax return.
And he told me, okay, listen, I really like you, and it wasn't even a small ticket size or that small, but still too small to put directly into the company. So he matched me with this women investment group that he said, you should meet them. They're investing in us in an Israeli vehicle. So you could do the investment through there. And there I started getting to know this investment club run by Orit, who later became a very good friend of mine.
What's the name of the club, Roni?
It's called Naomi Investment Club. And basically it's a club of women investing, and their initial challenge, or the reason that this club was made was to actually get women to do more investments.
Yeah.
So Orit and her partner at the time in Bal said, okay, they both came from financial worlds, and they said, okay, we see that even women that have exits or are in the financial markets or are part of the banks or whatever, when it comes to their own money, when it comes to investment, they like 99% of them give it to the husband to do the investment, to do the financials, even if they come from this field. Or especially if it's around investments in more like venture or alternative investments or stuff like that. So it's kind of like they don't trust it themselves, or it's just like the natural thing, or I don't know. So they created this club where it's an only women club, and they started looking at investments, and actually it became a very kind of known club in Israel, and we're getting a much better deal flow all the time, and becoming very well known. So sometimes it's like women entrepreneurs. Of course, we prefer to invest in women-led startups or co-founded startups, but it's not a must. It's not like we say we invest in the best startups we can invest in. So the idea is to have women learn and due diligence and invest by themselves, and not necessarily invest in women. So it's a different goal, right? But of course, being a women club and being part of this is of course we prefer to have women in the founding team. We think it's also a better it makes it better, but so it's I mean, we can talk about that, of course, but that's the goal, so just sorry, something so I I joined the club, and then at some point Anne,
Yeah, I'm here.
you're here? No, because my screen kind of jumps, and so I'm not sure what happens.
Okay.
I was sure we were. So at some point, I became also part of the investment team, and I started, doing due diligences on startups. So first of all, I started investing again my own money, because at that point, as I said, I have a very strict rule. So once it's also part of my own, let's say, work, if I'm due diligencing a company for the club, and then maybe I get some carry off of whatever investment I put in, so I cannot have the family money go into that. So I have a very strict line of never being kind of conflicted with interest. That's like the most important thing for me. So I started kind of working there and looking at investments. And one investment that I was due diligencing, it was also in food tech, and I brought it to the same Spanish group that made the other investment, because and it turned out that I was, on the one hand, due diligencing it for the Naomi Club, the Israeli club, and I was also in contact with the span, like with helping, let's say, the startup reach that startup group. And this is a very important point, which, if we get, I mean, we can talk about it always, but for me, it's all about information. The more information you have. So at that point, it was very fun, because I was part of the due diligence team on the Israeli women's side, but then I was also kind of part of all of the Zooms, all of the talks, as a finder, kind of, with a Spanish group. And it gave me even more kind of context, because everyone has their own angle, their own way to due diligence, their own things that bother them, their own view. And the more you get to know the startup, the more you due diligence it, the more people around due diligence it, and you hear the different views, the more, at the end, information and convictions that you can have. And this is also very true for everything else I'm doing right now. So I will talk about that, because lots of synergies in that.
I like it, because I want to compare it to, you might laugh at me, but I would compare how you describe what you naturally did. It's a bit like AI machine learning, because it's like I'm learning on this side, and then I'm learning on this side, and both sides are feeding into my overall understanding of the startup or the due diligence that I'm doing, and enhancing the data that I have and my decision-making process. So that's why I'm just like, as you're describing, that's, I could kind of see the mechanism going on.
It's exactly like that. And it's after that, this Spanish group, it's built differently. It's also like a club, but it's now it's going to also be a fund. But at that time, it was just a club where they had their own partners, but they had their network, of course, all Spanish men. And then they kind of offered me to join, to be a partner. So I joined. I joined the like about a year and a half ago. I joined the Spanish. They're called the Food Tech Lab, and they're doing only agri-food investments. So unlike Naomi, so basically, also in Naomi, I started as part of the investment committee to only due diligence agri-food, to kind of again have that synergy, right? Because it's, at the end, you have to have focus on something. I can always put some money on another startup that is coming through the club that has nothing to do with agri-food, because in Naomi there are like 60 women coming from very different backgrounds, so it's easy, or comparatively easy, to kind of form due diligence teams to due diligence education tech, to due diligence, I don't know, food tech, whatever. So we have women coming from different sectors. The Spanish Food Tech Lab, which is a very interesting, partnership, because it's all people coming from the industry, or most of them, coming from the industry, so owning very big companies in the food industry, or having been working in very big companies in the food or agriculture industry, with lots of connections in Spain and Portugal and Italy to the, let's say, agri-food world. So as I always say, and this is, I think, one of the biggest themes we can talk about, and I'm sure that it's all about the value that you bring outside of the finances that you bring. Because and that's true as an investor. To me, it's true also as an investor, but it's for certainly true as a startup. And of course, the better the startup that you are, or the better let's call it the ecosystem / the economics of the world is. So 2021, for example, people were lining up to join any startups at whatever valuation, in Israel at least, and of course most everywhere, but compared to anything else. So it was kind of like a seller's market or buyer's market, whatever depending where you look at it. But the entrepreneur could basically choose. And I always told, whether the Israeli startups or the Spanish investors, later on they became my partners, but also other investors I'm in touch with there, is that money is money, but what you have here is the ability to connect the Israeli ecosystem with what it really needs later on, which is the joint ventures, the strategic connections, the clients, the distributors, the everything. And since Spain is a very important, maybe the most important country in Europe in terms of food and agriculture, in terms of just being number one or two in basically anything that has to do with food and agriculture. And since you have so many companies there that are global, coming from this sector, and a lot of influence also in Latam and other important places, that's what the Israeli company needs. So you're an investor that can bring these connections and can help in whatever way it is, the cultural aspect of going into the market, everything. Because of course Israel, as I think maybe everyone knows, it's a crazy tech hub. I mean, it's a very innovative place. Again, we can talk about why it is like that.
Because I wanted to dive into that. And it might
be why Israel is like that.
Why Israel is a tech nation? Why is it startup nation? Why is it a tech nation? And then let's go into dive, because I really want us to teach us about the Israeli ecosystem, the ecosystem.
So I will tell you my own whatever 5 cents about that, but I will just close this parenthesis before, just saying that for Israel, that is a small market. The market is never in Israel, right? It's always a global market. It's nothing like you cannot be a successful anything if you're just looking at the local market. So by definition, you're going outside. So by definition, you want and you need different investors from Europe, from the States, from this, from that, and that's what I do. So what I do is these connections. I help startups with their business development in Spain, also in Latam, and at the end, we should go back to how it helps investments again, because all this information, kind of like the AI machine you said, it's all about value on the one hand, and on the other hand, kind of like, I call it an information game. The more you work with a startup, the more you help them out, or you work with them on different aspects, the more you know if it's the right startup to invest, and when it's the right time, the real problems inside, or you don't just get the look of I'm an investor. Okay, let's have our talks and ask you questions, and let me ask you about your Excel and your plan, because I'm actually helping you out here. I'm helping you connect. I'm helping you get to these strategic partnerships, everything. I see you in action. With those potential clients, whatever, dealing with cultural differences, dealing with everything. Of course, I'm there to help, but it doesn't matter. I get all this kind of more deep information about startup, so I get a better kind of conviction.
Mm.
So the Israeli tech.
So,
I will
okay.
tell you.
Yeah, no, let's pause there because I really want to capture what you've just said there. So if we summarize, like you are, I loved what you said. You are a finder, you are a connector, you are a master of the information game, and you go deep. So you don't just do superficial connections, superficial due diligence, superficial just superficial information seeking. You really go at a very deep level, which means that it helps in the process of you working with that startup. You're actually helping them grow and add value just by all the interactions that you're having. That's why I compared you to like AI machine learning, because it's getting more intelligent every single round of data that it gets. So, and that's why I want people to hear this, because if you are, and this is my shout out, if you are an Israeli startup or a Spanish startup and you want to, or any kind of startup, but you're interested in Israel or Spain and you're in food tech, agri-tech, you need to talk to Roni. That's basically me doing a little ad for you, because I know how brilliant you are. I've seen you in action, and I'm so glad that you're bringing some of that wisdom and brilliance to all of our listeners on the podcast here. So yeah, I wanted to close that parenthesis to say, that's why your profile is so interesting, Roni. It's that you have that bicultural piece and wider cultural piece. So yeah, everybody who's interested, you might have a flurry of people going,
So,
you might have loads of new business, which is what I wish for you. And I'm sure you'll find great startups that will flock to you in the food tech and the agri-tech sector that go to you. So I wanted
so
to
first of all, thank you about that, and just to add that, because it's not that I do some things very deep because that's what I love. Connecting and business development and join, and this is I'm good at that. So I can astonish myself in the level of connections that I can make. But on the other hand, I also know what I don't love, which is like very, like, for example, I will never be the one doing legal due diligence, which we should do, and it's very important. And I will never be the one doing till the end all the financial. So that's why I also said I didn't want to invest in venture before, but as part of these kinds of partnerships, I can do that because I have partners that I depend on in the due diligence team, whether the Spanish one, whether the Israeli one, doesn't matter. And I don't need to be everything. I can say my own kind of like, I have a feeling about that, and I see the market here, and I see how they do here, and I ask the questions where I'm coming from. I can connect a lot of dots, but I also can rely on other people to do jobs that they do far better than I do, and that have to be done, right? And at the end, we make a decision as a team. So,
and I think
just
that's
wanted.
thank you for explaining that. And I think that's a really good explanation for all of the women, in particular, the women who are sitting on the fence and saying, well, won't I start become an angel? That's the whole point, is that you don't have to be because we can hold ourselves back. You don't have to be an absolute expert on everything, or even in one vertical, an absolute expert. There will be people in your angel network or in the network around it who will fill in some of those gaps. I think what I would encourage women to do is to understand and know your area of excellence and your area of brilliance, and focus, double down on that part. And that part will be super valuable in the due diligence process to the startup as well, because that's where the fun will be. It's like, yes, you need to check and see, is this a good investment? And then it's afterwards, that's where you're going to have the fun. Exactly like you light up when you talk about connecting, when you talk about the biz dev. I mean, look at the smile, and people can't see you now, but I'm seeing a big smile on Roni's face, and she lights up when she talks about it. So I think just for those women who are thinking, why try to be an angel investor and just start, I think that's a really good way of saying that you don't have to have it all figured out. You will learn alongside other people who are more experienced, and you will build up your experience. And there are other people who have areas of expertise to fill in the gaps that you don't have. So don't hold yourself back. I really want to say that.
Totally. Yeah, no, totally. And women do hold themselves back. I mean, we all know that that women have that inside them in terms that they will always feel like they're not good enough, whereas the same man in the same position will feel like he's good enough. And this is something we have to kind of learn. It's not their fault, it's our fault. Like it's how we have to learn how to kind of say, yeah, it's because you can always feel, everyone can feel like, oh no, I'm not, good enough in that and that, I'm not. Yeah, but this is just part of being alive. No one is perfect at anything. No one is the best or at anything, and it's just kind of. And I do believe that, kind of like what you said about lighting up. At the end of the day, whether you're an investor, you want to be an investor, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be whatever you want to be. And this is, it's a known thing, but it's like it gets more and more clear the older you are.
Yeah.
That the more you are in the right place, the more it's like you're in high energy. So it's like you can be good at something, you can be really good at something, and you can be like extremely brilliant, excellent at some other thing. And at that thing, you will you will feel it in your body. When you're doing that, you will feel like such high energy when you're doing whatever it is you really like doing and where you're really brilliant at. Whereas in the other things, you can do them well, you can do them maybe better than most people, but you're like, okay, I'll do it, but it doesn't give you the same rush, it doesn't give you the same.
So exactly, and in the spirit of Marie Kondo and her tiding and so on and blah blah, what she says is does it spark joy, and that is exactly that energy feeling. Exactly. So whatever you do, make sure it sparks joy. But as an angel as well, become an angel in the area that sparks joy, and go to the angel club or network that sparks joy. And I'll talk more about that afterwards, because I want to grab your knowledge, give us a download into
Israeli.
Yes. So tell us about the Israeli startup Tech Nation start there. It gives a bit of context, and then your insights into the state of funding in Israel today, because you've both sides.
So I think that Israelis is very, they're in many ways kind of different people. I would say sometimes very controversial, kind of like Israel itself. So there are many things that I can say about Israelis as a, very general kind of thing. And it comes from education, it comes from our genes, it comes from our background and history, and, the Jewish people coming or whatever, and being all survival and whatever. But it ends up that we are very kind of all a little bit of smartass. Like we don't like authority. We will always be like, no, you told me I can't do this. There's no way I can't do this. I will show you that I can do this because
Yeah.
So someone just told me, like I heard someone saying that you get 2 Israelis in the room, you get 11 opinions. So it's like, and everyone's kind of loud. Everyone is kind of outspoken, and I think that I think that it's funny. I'm going to say something that again can sound a little bit controversial, but Jews are considered for their. You're a Jew. People have actually said this to me many times. Oh, you're Jewish. It's like you guys are good with money. You like money.
Stereotype.
And it's not just. But what I've learned is that Israelis. It comes at the end with money, but everyone needs to succeed. Everyone kind of needs, and this is a good and a bad thing, because there's no tranquility here. Everyone kind of needs, but it's more about the success and about the making it, not on the financial, not on the, and it just, you have to do something really like exciting and different. That's the thing. So for example, unlike Europe, and if I'm just trying to very like, you will not find any person opening a sandwich bar, not even in Tel Aviv, but just like far away it will never look like any other sandwich bar. The sandwich itself will have like a different, something you've not tasted before. Like I'll put some honey in the cheese and I'll add some whatever, and I'm having a different sandwich. Whereas for good and bad, and this is, I'm always stressing this, for good and bad Israelis, it's kind of like we don't have like hundreds of years of like, you know, the same culture. You'll go with your wine, with your whatever hamon and whatever. You will expect that it's a very, everyone's like, da, 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 da. No, I'm going to open another thing. It's going to be very different, very, you know, and I'm going to say, oh, this is like, it's a different sandwich bar because it's, and it has another coffee. So we are very kind of innovation and adopting innovation and kind of wanting to, I think, make a difference in a way. This is the way I see it. Of course, a lot of technology is coming from the army. So of course, the army plays a lot of this role. First of all, it's like the biggest HR manager, you know, basically taking people and their talents and kind of putting them in different positions, where at 18,
well, that's it, because I was going to say, remind people, because what happens for every Israeli man or woman, that's exactly, that's
everyone goes to the army, right?
There. So explain that to people. Yeah.
So Israeli, when they're 18, after 12th grade, everyone goes to the army. So 2 years for women and 3 years for men. And now women also do combat, whereas in my days, hardly. So women can be combat pilots, women can be basically anything, mostly. Since the army is the Israeli army, I mean, we are a small country and we are surrounded by, you know, like, well, enemies, or like, you know, countries with which we are in conflict, with which we have wars every now and then. So we kind of understood from the very beginning that we have to be a smart army. No, we can never be the biggest army because we'll always be the smallest ones. We'll never have enough people.
Yeah.
So the intelligence and technology back in the day already, not even like technology as we call it now, but before, you know, it was very big. It was like one of the biggest, most important things that were developed in the army. And of course, in the last 20 years, where also the high tech developed very much in the entire world, it was very obvious because you come from the intelligence. So think about an 18-year-old that goes into one of these units. He gets like incredible training, just like you do for combat, but you do for whatever it is, cyber or whatever it is that you build it, or IT or programming or whatever. And in a way, it's kind of like a very quick and dirty, but very deep and real college of that profession. So these people come out, sometimes it also helps you a lot in kind of understanding what you want to do or what you don't want to do. So unlike Europeans and Americans and everyone else that kind of have to decide or do decide what they will study or what they will be when they're kind of teenagers, right? We decide that much later in life, and after having kind of at least one type of experience, whereas it is an experience where it is a bit professional. So you can be an instructor, you can be a pilot, you can be an intelligence, you know, officer or engineer or whatever. Of course, there are many special units, many special things, but in general, you kind of have some understanding about yourself when you go out and make these decisions. And of course, a lot of these kind of training, actual training in technology, let's call it like as a general aspect, you get, or a lot of people get. So a lot of technologies that were and are developed in the army, have been taken out. So people have come out of the army and said, oh, you know what we've done in the army here and there and that, let's take it to whatever telecommunications and do a disruption with that kind of technology, and let's take it out to mobility. And so a lot of the technology is not necessarily in what we, you would think like cyber or whatever that has been like mostly like the last 10 years, but just taking it and applying it into other fields, the idea. And I think in general, if you ask me, Israelis are very creative in solving things, in solving problems. They're not very good at, and I think at planning. And when you see Israel, I always say to people, Israel to me, and I've traveled everywhere. I love traveling, and I've taken my entire family very long kind of mochilera trips all around the world, and it's kind of my hobby. But if you ask me, Israel, and people might not like what I or not agree with me, but Israel is somewhere in between Manhattan and like New York or whatever, and India. Like you have the craziness of like a third world, kind of like everyone doing whatever, and also the energy and kind of Middle Eastern and very kind of like everyone's like not in line. But on the other hand, it's very sophisticated and tech oriented and innovative and very high kind of finances. And you have Israelis all over the world also, which is also part of kind of the network that helps Israeli startups or helps Israelis maybe, or so you have lots of Israelis going abroad and living abroad. It's just part of and innovation is even in those little things like, and I'm telling you this really for good and bad. When I lived in Spain and I saw so many families, and I envy that in a way that they lived, they have this like house on the like their summer beach house or whatever, and they've gone to this summer beach house for the last 50 years. They were there as small children. Now they're taking their small children. They have the same, and it's incredible. And we are all very neurotic people. We never go to the same place once. Israel is like every year you will look, and now people are all going to Uzbekistan and Jordan. This is like the new place. Now everyone's going to Seychelles, and it's like, and once people start going and flights open, and everyone now is going to Seychelles on their, and next few years something else will be. And Israelis will never go to the same. Okay, fine. If I really like London, I'll go to London more than once. I'll go to Madrid or to Paris more than once. But in general, Israelis, you will find them kind of going to different places. And this is a very big generalization, of course. Some people love India and just always go back to India. But in general, you will see lots of families traveling the world. You will see lots of these kind of like looking for yourself. And I always say it's part of not being calm. So in a way, it's like a curse and also a blessing. I don't know. This is the way I see it. And I'm part of it, so I can see the curse in that, and I can also see the blessing in that. So I don't know.
Love it. And I think it's wonderful to thank you for giving that us this overview and insight into, Israeli difference and culture, because it's very good to give us the context. So now we have the backdrop of this highly innovative, forward-thinking, fast-moving type of culture. How does that translate then into the funding industry? So what is it like to raise money in Israel, or just in general? What's the funding ecosystem like?
So, of course, it became more and more known to the entire world to be like this tech hub. By the way, I didn't talk about it, but a lot of things came out of need, like the army, for example, agri-tech, of course. I mean, we are a very small land, no water, mostly desert, and we cannot like import from our neighbors or whatever. So of course, all these things that some people don't know, it's Israeli, technology from the 70s that is all around the world, drip, irrigation, all these things is Israeli, because of all these necessities, right? So I think little by little, and it has to do with universities, I think Israelis and Jews have a whole thing about learning. And it's very much in the, I don't know, in the background and the history, and the universities are very good. And since it's a very small market, it's a very small world, it's easier to get out of university to the industry. It's easier to kind of melt everything together, I think. So lots of things came out of the universities and everything. So I think little by little in the last probably 30 years, I mean, it became more and more known that technologies arise here, and entrepreneurs are good here. And these entrepreneurs are able to go to foreign markets, which I think it's also being part of our tradition of being not very traditional, and basically coming from everywhere in the world and being able to kind of, I don't know, it's kind of that nature that enables us to also sell all around the world, or kind of adopt ourselves, or know how to I don't know, work with the right local partners, or we understand that we're very little. We don't have a market. We need partnerships. We need connections, whether it being an Israeli or someone you know there, or just in general. So it's things that have developed over the last a few dozens of years. By the way, the Israeli government helped a lot in developing the tech system. It has a very formed like in the 80s, I think, the incubation system, whereas the Israeli government gives like tenders of incubators in different areas, so food tech, agri-tech, whatever. And these incubators are basically they're giving to investors from the area. So investors in the, let's say in food tech. So one incubator is the most known one is from Strauss, one of the biggest food in one of the two biggest food companies in Israel. So they're managing the incubator. And what does that mean? It means that they're an investor in food tech and innovation, and they have facilities, they have this and that, but on every 15 cents that they put in a pre-seed round, the government puts in 85 cents. So that, I think that if you look at like probably the last 10 years, right, it might not have been that important, because compared to the amount of money raised here in different rounds, not just pre-seed and seed, whatever, and since all of the biggest funds in the world have offices here, and so much money has been coming here, this is very little kind of this government leveraging is not that a big deal. By the way, the Innovation Authority in Israel also helps in funding and grants to many startups that have high technology. So it's also part of it. But it certainly was part of the beginning of the whole kind of, ecosystem in the 80s and 90s to kind of push that, to give investors these kinds of venture investors where you and I know what it is and everyone knows what it is now, but like 40 years ago, people were not talking about venture investments. So they gave all these kind of potential investors these tenders to invest in technology companies, coming to them with ideas or whatever, putting their $150,000 and having the government match another 850. That was part of what has happened there.
Well, that in itself is very innovative, because I know like there's a lot of parallels between how you describe Israel and Ireland. Actually, I think there's a lot of parallels. Like we're an island nation. I know we're closer to Europe, but small population, huge diaspora around the world, very much like Israel. Innovation, adaptation, all that stuff. Agriculture too, big one, but not as, it's in a different way. You've mastered that kind of at higher level. And we've gotten really good in Ireland at attracting all the big companies as well. So there's a lot of similarities, cultural.
A lot, I know.
But however, also just pulling in on that, what you just said about the government, innovation and impact with the match funding, because that was also a big reason why things have kicked off. Ireland has also been working on the ecosystem for the last 30, 40 years. It's the things that we've been doing 40 years ago that mean that we are where we are now, very much similar to Israel. And also in the tender thing. So we have the match funding, but it's not as generous as yours. So in Ireland, I know it's less. I think it's 50-50. It tends to be 50-50 match funding, and depending on the size of the rounds. And I think it's capped at 250,000 or something. So but still a big boost, and it's very tough due diligence, blah, 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 to get it. And some entrepreneurs need to go through 3, 4, 5 rounds before they get it. It's like, I think that's a bit overworked, but anyway, but this tender thing about the match funding, I think it's great just to call it out. Okay, so keep going. So there's all of this means that it's created this ecosystem, and now
exactly. So there is this ecosystem where you have innovation in health, innovation coming from the universities and everything. You have innovation in agriculture. You have innovation in so many things. The food, for example, is a new thing because it's the last few years, and Israel last year was number 2 after the United States getting funded in food tech, which is incredible. Like if you think about it, we are like what 9-10 million people.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
And of course, there's another thing to consider where like probably like 40% of the Israeli workforce is not really relevant in the labor, whether it being very Orthodox people. The Arab population is now becoming part of it, and also the Orthodox a little bit, but it's not like, the general population. So we're even smaller when you consider like the people of potential. So it's a very big deal. And of course, the biggest funds, every multinational, every top, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 fund is in Israel with an office. So of course that enables a lot of cash going into that, and a lot of money going into to startups. And of course, the bigger the bubble, or like at least in 2021, is a bubble in the entire world because of the whole, low interest, because of because of everything. The bigger maybe the fall. So it is harder, very much harder now to get funded than it was a year and a half ago. But still, I think good companies are getting funded. And actually, I think it's a good thing in general, because it was a little bit too much. It was a little bit too much on the kind of like, it has to be better balanced, so that only, the better ideas, the better technologies get funded, so I think in general, as a process, it's a good thing, but it is hard on the way, and it is, and sometimes it is very hard, because, for example, agri-tech was never funded as much as cyber, like not even close. It's very much harder to make an exit in that, to grow an agri-tech company, so when you see funding going down on these things much more than they are on cyber or whatever, so that's also depressing in a way. That's what we are here to kind of help. I mean, at least I think that the good thing about now, in the sense of the climate change and everything, is that more and more investments are going into ESG and into impact, and agriculture and food are part of that, and so. So there are funds available, and there will be an impact in these areas, even if it's harder to create revenue and to disrupt these industries. It's much harder.
So what are the key sources of funding then for a startup in Israel? So you've mentioned, so there are what's the state of angel investing in general versus venture? Is it really venture heavy? Can you kind of give us the lay of the land of the different sort? You've mentioned the government funding, right? So there's government match funding. What else? So what are the different sources that?
So the government match funding is the incubators, where it's very kind of pre-seed, right? There's also government grants. The IIA, the Israeli Innovation Authority, also gives grants where you have like a high level and they due diligence the level. They have expertise in everything, and they do due diligence like the technology, the patents, everything, and they do give you non-diluted grants. So most startups that I work with will have gotten some kind, because at least for me, you know, the technology is very important. We haven't talked about it, but most Israeli companies are very high technology in terms of like more B2B, less B2C, less kind of like an application that maybe many users will need, or what, more like enablers of actual technology, because it's there are many reasons for that, but mostly successful B2B companies versus B2C, because also B2C, again, you have to be closer to your consumers, your customers, and mostly Israel is like, okay, so we will develop like an engine that at the end will be used by the different markets with different businesses more easily than we will actually. So Waze, for example, is not the right, like, it's a very B2C Israeli success. Wix, in a way, is also kind of like more like a B2C, I would say, and actually getting all these like end consumers and customers. But most Israeli companies, most exits, most unicorns will be B2B companies with a very high level of technology, so that will be funded. That by itself will be funded in the beginning if you have an interesting technology. But in general, so angels, of course, there are many angels. So part of what has also come out of this ecosystem, I think, is that a lot of people have made exits over the years, and those people, a lot of them, I think most of them, especially men, but most of them, in one way or another became angel investors, because they came from the trade. You know, they like it. They have succeeded in taking company from whatever, from idea or from this to that. They have the money. And most of them will take at least part of this money to put into startups, because it's what they know, it's what they understand, it's because they want to be close to entrepreneurs, they want to be part of another company and its success, and helping them, and they live this industry in a very kind of it's not like a banker or a financial investor saying, okay, I'll put some of this money into venture and this day. It's part of them. So I think that's a very big part of the angel network here.
Yeah, so that's my question. So how are the angel networks organized? Is there one big Israeli business angel network and then several other ones, or are there lots of ones by sector?
It's a jungle. It's a jungle. I mean, you have many angel investors, some of them in different angel groups. Some of these angel groups are more specialized in specific things that they've, you know, at some point gotten together, some friends became angels, started doing whatever help they can, investments because of whatever network that they had, and then at some point they became more specialized in that, and they do only that, and some do it's like there. And of course, a lot of these angels that first became angels or are still angels, some of them have gotten on to more like being fund managers, right? So okay, I'm not only doing my own angel investment, let's, you know, partner up or have a fund, because of course, if you're a considered angel investor, if you've had your portfolio and you've had successes, then it's much easier for you to raise a fund and to have that. So I mean, and then you can have funding come from anyone, and whether in the United States, in Europe, and in whatever, because you're this person that has made their own exit, you've had your own portfolio, you know how to take companies, to advise them, again, to give value, which is very important, because at the end of the day, and this is very important for both investors and entrepreneurs, this is a partnership, this is not a loan. Yes. So it can be a very bad partnership, kind of like a marriage. Yeah. And you can be like, oh, I gave these investors they invested in me like 3 years ago when I needed the money, and now I can't stand them. Like the first thing I would want to do is get them out of my company, because they're just and you can have the opposite. You can have these like whatever angels or investors that have put some money. It doesn't have to be even a lot of money, but have helped you throughout the way. It could be psychological help, like when everything, it could be of course value in connections, in helping, in everything. And it's very, very crucial to do this right. I think for a long-term success as an investor, you have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, because everyone is talking value.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone is giving and I think that most angels or networks or funds will have that possibility, but some will do it better than others. So all are coming from they will be able to bring that, and when they talk it, they do mean to do it, but not everyone will actually do it to the maximum of their potential of actually helping, which is, we're all human, and all of us humans, like the only resource we really don't have enough of is, of course, time. It's nothing else.
Exactly.
So at the end, you could have done a lot more. So of course, the startup that will have us have like 10 lives, and every day I could wake up in the morning and have 10 days instead of 1 day, and I could do so much more. That would be incredible.
What's it like then on the VC funding? So there are lots of Israeli funds, lots of global funds based in Israel, and it's like there is plenty of opportunity for funding, basically. Is that what you're saying at the VC level?
Yeah, I think so. There is plenty. It doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. It's never easy to raise funds. And when I'm on the other side, sometimes I'm always very kind of sensitive to. I mean, these guys, they have to do these pitches all the time. They have to go on a round and another round. And we just finished a round last year. Now we have to go on another round. And of course, when it's easier to raise, everything is easier, but it's never easy to raise. Even in 2021 or 2020, if you're not like a whiz kid coming out of the army from cyber doing like the next step, maybe that would be very easy. But in general, nothing is easy. And it's a lot of work and a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of negotiation, a lot of everything. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think entrepreneurs are different in the terms that some of them are very good at it and like it, the fundraising, and some are like, you have to do it, but it really, you wouldn't. But I don't think anyone really loves it, in the sense that you have to you want to do your work, whatever your work is, being the CEO of the company, looking at the entire, being the whatever the technology that you mostly want to do your work. You would be happily
fundraising. It's part of the game.
Exactly.
That you just want to, at the end of it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some are really good at it, and they're the experts at it, and they probably love it, going back to what we discussed before. But in general, it's something you have to do, right?
It is. And so, okay, I want to do a quick fire round, because we've gone a little bit over time, but it's great because it's so interesting what you're sharing. So what would be your key funding tips to women entrepreneurs in particular, Roni, in general?
Yeah, so we didn't kind of go into first of all, I'll tell you what I see. I see that and I'm saying that, I think, in a very objective matter. In general, I see a lot of these women founders to be on average much better than their men counterparts, for a very easy reason, right? It's not because in general we are better. It's because we are much less. So the women that actually make it to these kind of like level of technology, of entrepreneurship, of actually doing it, like in competing in that level, they most in general, they are just in the most incredible women. And I can tell you that all of the companies that I have invested in, or some of the companies that I'm in contact with, I mean, the women there are just outstanding. And it's not a coincidence. It's just that to get there, you have to be very outstanding, because I mean, Israel is also a very in that sense, a very kind of not backward society, but I wanted to say like very like family and having children, all these things very important. And it's that no woman here will ever, mostly will not tell you that. So they have the two little babies, and they're doing this, and they're doing that, and that, and some of them are like closing deals like 24 hours after birth, and like with Walmart or whatever. And I'm like, how do you do this? And so like unbelievable. So really super women. So I always like to have these women, because I think that in general they are just incredible. And I think that and I think that women in general, like they're, if I could say one generalistic thing, because being smart, whatever, you're where they tend to be better, or they are better in general, is they're just, they have a higher sensitivity towards everything. And what does that mean? When you're a founder, when you're an entrepreneur, you kind of have so many stakeholders here, the investors and the business and the workers, and you have to motivate, you have to do everything. It's like the most difficult job in the world, right? And the more sensitive in terms of people you are, at the end of the day, it's all about people. Everything that you do is about people. If you're the technical person, doing only code, whatever, you will not also be the founder probably, or you will be in the lab or whatever. But a founder has to be also like a team leader, whatever. So women have that kind of possibility to understand and to be sensitive to the needs around them. And I think it's all about fulfilling needs, to fulfill the needs of the investors, and then this investor and that one, and the business and this market and that market, kind of understand. So this is where they're good at in general. What they're not good at sometimes is, and myself included, is that we tend to kind of be around a lot of men. And when you're in a male conversation, sometimes it's very hard to
get your point of view.
I don't know, to put yourself out there in a very kind of precise way. And sometimes we're too nice, and sometimes we don't say exactly what we need, the way we need to say it. So in that sense, we're sometimes too soft. And that is not that is not the, like, it can go both ways, but I'm just, right now saying it's like the weakness, right? So the strength and the weakness of this thing. So as a woman entrepreneur or a woman founder, first of all, I like to see teams of men and women. Founders, usually there's not one founder of a startup, usually it's 2 or 3. So I like to see mixed teams. I think it's better than all women or all men, for the obvious reasons, right? For the obvious diversity reasons. So if you see all these men investors, which there are, who are more chauvinistic and are looking for, like, okay, so first of all, don't go to VCs or to funding angels who have never invested in a woman and will never, so you should just, because again, there are so many, and time is never on your side or whatever. But then sometimes you will see investors, sometimes they are very, so have your male counterpart bring his thing that maybe they want to see also, or maybe he needs to say like the more strict things, and maybe you are not that good at that. So you need to kind of look at the whole game. So what are they looking for? It's not that women will necessarily prefer women. Sometimes women are too aware of the problems of being women, so they actually prefer men. and sometimes it's the opposite. So you kind of need to understand who you're dealing with, what they want to see, what are their biases in a way, and kind of use what you have on your side, you know. And the more sensitive you are, and the better you will be at getting people to work for you, and your investors to work for you, and your investors to actually listen to you, and to want to invest in you, because they, you know, so I guess that's true for every entrepreneur. Nothing different about, but when you speak your mind, where you're quite transparent, where you're very, you know, be strong where you're strong, and definite, and where you have a definite opinion, but be very humble where you don't know everything, and where you're not very sure of, and where things are still open and you don't know the answer to. It's fine. Investors are smart people. Usually they don't want to see like a perfect, like, no, you know, just be yourself, and if you're good enough, and your idea and your technology is good enough, I believe you will get funded.
I love it. And so why okay, so last thing I think I really want to hear from you is, what needs to change in funding moving forward? If you had a magic wand, what would you change in the whole funding game, Roni?
I would have that AI machine. I would, and I don't know how to do that, but there should be an there, like, ideally, I don't know if this answers your question, right? Because I'm not going to give you like okay, let's do that or that. It's just like, ideally, if we could share information, if I could know more and more about the startups, things that I don't know, from people that work with them, their suppliers, maybe their potential clients. So some of them I will due diligence, some of them I won't be able to because I will not have access to, some of them I will not do because I don't have the time, or I don't think it's necessary. But at the end of the day, it's all an information game. So that if I could know about each and every founder, and by the way, this is also a very strong thing in Israel, because it's such a small place, and everyone kind of, so it's very easy to know. Do you know this guy? He's the co-founder. What do you know about him? Whatever. But you don't always do this about everything. So if I could just have like this machine where I could get all of the information out there in like a ChatGPT kind of nice like outlay, like about the founders, about everything, about their mistakes, about what people say, what people don't say, what's the technology. If I could just have more and more and more information about the technology, about the people, about the team, about everything, that would make me so much smarter.
Yeah.
So I think collaboration, and investors do that. They collaborate. So more collaboration and more kind of open, because, you know, investors always, on one hand, they collaborate. On the other hand, they compete.
Yeah.
Not compete, but they have to kind of, okay, what I do for myself, so I will get you on that if it makes sense for me to get you on that. But if it doesn't, then I won't. So
Yeah.
So it's, if there was some kind of platform where you could truly share a lot of information of basically due diligence and people and their level of thought, and you know, the trust that you can put in whatever thought they have or information they give you, that would be, wow, 100 steps forward. But I don't know if that could answer your question.
Oh, you just give me ideas. You're feeding me for something that I have in mind as well. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last message that you want to share on this podcast and to our listeners, Roni?
Well, I just want to maybe say that you have to concentrate on giving value, whether you're an investor, whether you're creating a technology, whether you're connecting people, finding whatever. If you really truly do what you're good at and bring value to people in your thoughts, in whatever it is that you do and you're good at, then things will happen. in the way that they should happen, in the way that your career should, ravel itself. How do you say that?
Yeah, it should have. Yeah.
But you just have to be good at being good. You just have to help out. In my case, right? Just give value to whatever, to the investors, to my community. The more value I give, not everything I will get paid for, not everything, but things just basically put you in the right place where you should be and where you have the highest value to give, and where you will get more, and where you will be known for your reputation will be more the best and the most correct, the more precise. So just concentrate on giving value.
I love it. I love that. That's a great parting message. Thank you so much. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us today, Roni. Thank you for sharing your advice, your insights. So fascinating. I've been on a wonderful journey with you this morning, and I think our listeners have too. So thank you so much for investing the time in us and in sharing what you know, so that other people know more about Israel and everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to InvestHer podcast. Don't miss more great funding tips and insights by subscribing to the podcast on Apple or your favorite podcast host. And while you're there, I'd love you to rate and review the show. We'd love to hear from you. So if you'd like to send in some questions, interact with our guests, or suggest other great people we should feature, join our community on the Flick InvestHer group, or send us a message on investherpodcast.com. Want more great resources for female founders about funding? Check out our InvestHer Academy at academy.globalinvesther.com. I'm Anne Ravanona and look forward to having you with us again for our next episode. Let's put the fun into funding and get more women entrepreneurs funded.